want to go to the driveway entry. And this is actually a shared driveway. This is two neighbors share this entry. So the UPS, the you know, all your delivery vehicles come through here, and you can see that it's taking a beating. And this is not just from delivery vehicles. This is mostly due to a tree that was here at one time in this location. You can see by the stump grinding in this area that's been removed, stump ground, but we still have some stuff going on here. This looks like it was a big old pine tree from the looks of that root right there, and it shoots right underneath this driveway, so we got to get that out. We're going to go down, we're going to over X this driveway, get all the roots out of there. Then we're going to put some road base and compact, because it is a shared driveway and you do have delivery vehicles here. What we're going to do as far as the finish goes on this, we're doing a medium gray integral mix in 3250 psi, and we're going to do an antiquing release dark gray. We're going to do cobblestone field. Then on the bands, we're just going to do a perimeter band all the way around. It's just going to have the texture. It's a monolithic pour, texture on the band on the outside perimeter, cobblestone in the middle. And the nice thing about cobble is you got a straight line in one direction that we can utilize for a saw cut control joint. We can cut on that line, and we can minimize the effect of control joint by using a saw cut so that it's not taken away from the pattern. We got a little situation here we got to contend with. We're going to lay some 6-inch, because this pour is going to be 5-6 inches deep. So I'm going to put some half-inch felt along this edge, because I know the asphalt is not straight like concrete typically is. So I'm going to put half-inch, 6-inch high felt along there, pour against that. And then if they ever mess with this asphalt, they can marry it to the new concrete. That's the plan there. And here's what we have here. All gonna go bye-bye. All new, all the time. It's the name of the game. Blow and go, get it done. Hi, David Odell with Odell Complete Concrete. This is day one on this driveway replacement. The reason we are replacing it is because we had a lot of tree damage. There's a massive pine tree about 80 feet tall on one side of it. All the roots were underneath this. It raised it up probably about 8 inches in one area. I have my usual demo guy, Andy, on this. What looks to be brick ribbon there is actually stamped concrete. It was the old cookie cutter stamps, the original stamps they came out with. They weren't rubber, and they didn't have texture on them. They were just like a cookie cutter. That's all they were, steel cookie cutters. And that's how this one was done. Wow, man, this concrete is pretty thick. It's running about 4.5, 5. In most areas. There is a couple thin spots though too. It really varies, but look at the size of this root, man. It's almost an entirely new tree growing underneath the concrete. We actually took 2 loads out of here, 2 full loads, because we could have done it with 1 load if we weren't taking any dirt. But we over excavated here. Plus we had all the roots and stuff mixed in with the dirt for the second load. We did about a solid 4 to 5 inches of road base underneath this one. The new concrete that we're going to be putting back in here is going to be 5 inches deep. It's going to have 1/2-inch rebar on 18-inch centers. We're going to do a band similar to the brick that they had in here, but we're going to do about a 14-inch wide band of just texture, stone texture look. And then the field is going to be a cobblestone stamp. And we're using 2 different colors on this. We're using a light gray integral in the concrete, and then we're going to use a dark gray antique release agent. for everything. The band's going to get the antique release agent and the field, the cobblestone field. So same effect, same colors on the band and the field, but two different patterns. Look at those chunks of roots coming out of there. I think that tree on the right up there had only just one minor root going underneath, but most of the big ones were from the tree that was on the left, the pine tree. But you notice how he's using that breaker attachment to get underneath those roots and pry them out. So we want to get all of that organic out of there, and then over X to make sure it's all gone, and then bring in some nice road base. This area, this particular dirt in this area is very expansive, and it's almost alive. What happens throughout the seasons with this dirt, it's pretty amazing, because if you've ever lived in this area, you'd know that in the winter, your doors in your house will work fine. Come summer, they're not fitting in the door jambs anymore, so you go through cycles with this ground. It's very interesting. So we're not taking out all of the asphalt driveway. I did do a saw cut, as you can see here, along the asphalt edge just to get a good clean edge. And I just used the 9-inch DeWalt cordless. It cut that beautifully. Now I've got a straight edge on that asphalt. What I'm going to do is lay some 6-inch felt along that, and I'll pour up against that. That way when they do anything to this asphalt, reseal it or whatever they might do, I'll have that little cushion barrier between the concrete and the asphalt. That way there's a good chance they won't damage the concrete, possibly, is what my hope is. So here's that dirt coming out. As he removes this dirt for the over X, we'll pull a string line across now and then just to make sure we've got about 9 inches deep. Here's the string line, pulling it across, checking the depth. We've got 9 inches all the way across. Notice where we put the base. We brought, I think it was 6 tons or 7 tons of base here. And we brought that in first because I didn't want to dump this stuff out in the street, because the street was just redone. And a lot of times this road base that's ground concrete, the residue from it will actually stain the asphalt. So I put it back here because this particular private driveway is serving 2 properties, but it's due to be resealed anyway. So if I was going to do damage to one or the other street, I chose this one. We did get a lot of rain. After we removed this, we got a lot of rain, and there was we actually filled up with water in here. Came over the next day while it was still raining, and I cut a trench down the hillside to drain the water out. I dumped a bag of lime in here to try to dry it up. That seemed to help somewhat, but I was able to move forward on this job. I only had 1 day down after a heavy fill up of water in this area. I think the base helped with that. I was able to get the base in before it rained, but yeah, if I didn't have the base in there, it would have been a lot of downtime.
What?
See, we left that asphalt strip in there just for driving back and forth over. That way we wouldn't damage the nice saw cut where we're gonna match up to the asphalt. We're driving the tractor back and forth over that clean edge. It wouldn't be clean very long if you didn't leave that chunk in there. So those are some things to remember when you're doing removal. You don't want to bang up the edges. Leave something there to protect it. Do the last by hand. So this is day 1. We've got it all removed. We've got our base. Now we're day 2. About 7 in the morning. We're setting some forms. And we've drained the water out. This is actually day 3 because we had that down day like I was telling you. And we had to come back here. We didn't film that with the water in here because I was just kind of scrambling to get the water out, you know, is what I mainly was concerned about. So we're using 2x4, and you can see that we got a good 1.5 gap under it. So we're at 5 inches deep, not compacted yet. That form on the left side we did kind of on a little radius there. A slow radius. And what we'll have around the entire perimeter is a 14-inch band, texture only, and then a cobblestone stamped field. Checking the grade again for depth to make sure we've got the solid 5. And we do, so once we compact, it'll be a little bit more. Here's the plate compactor we're using. This plate compactor is from Tomahawk Tools in San Diego. It seemed to be a pretty good piece of equipment. It's heavier than your average, and then it's got a smaller plate, so it's hitting harder per square inch than most. And you can see a little of that water wanting to pump up at this low end. So we avoided that with the plate compactor temporarily. Oh, here's the lime I was telling you about earlier to try to draw some of that water out of there. And I just spread the lime where it was the wettest. And this is pretty much where it was. So put that on there, recompacted it. Lime works pretty good for this. You know, it's even nice in concrete, but this particular procedure here is kind of a mess, because if you walk through it and then you walk around anywhere else, here's that 9-inch DeWalt again, cordless. I just changed blades. I put the carborundum in there. And it's great for cutting steel because you don't have, it's a little bit better than a right angle grinder or bolt cutter, because you don't really have to, you can one hand it and just hang it down and really not have to bend over that much. Well, here's pour day. You can see I still have that lime there. Most of it's kind of absorbed. But that'll help also with the way this concrete dries, because we know that the base is wetter in that lower end. And that lime will help it all dry evenly. So it's going to look pretty dark right now because this is a light gray. I think it's Outback maybe on the Davis color chart, but it's a very light gray, minimal color pigment in there. I think it's 1/4 pound per sack, so it's really light on the pigment, but it does a lot of damage because it's a black, but we want a light gray. So as this cures out, like all concrete, it gets lighter. This won't get as light as your typical concrete because we have that color in there, but it will still get lighter. And because of this time of year, you're probably looking at a good 45 to 90 days where you're going to really see the true color of this. We have all that rebar on dobies in this case. The reason I put, sometimes I use dobies, sometimes I don't, because this is a 5-inch slab. So I have the space to use dobies, and I'm not concerned about the rebar cracking and being too close to the surface. Yeah, so that's what happens. If rebar gets too close to the surface, you end up cracking the concrete right over the rebar, and then it also rusts. So that's why I usually pick it up on a 4-inch slab, because they don't make dobies the right height for a 4-inch and steel. So when I get to a 5-inch, I'm real comfortable with dobies. And mind you, that's the 2-inch dobies, not the 3-inch. So if I was doing a 6-inch, I could potentially use a 3-inch dobie, but 2 inches just fine here. We've got somewhat of little swale down here where we meet the whale tail of that curb and gutter there. We were able to get this with one load. This was a 10-yard load, and we made it, which is nice because you don't really want to have to get a cleanup load with a color. I mean, you have to do it occasionally, but if you can avoid it, it's nice because no two loads are perfectly the same. Here's a 4-foot wood bowl float. I left a little pile of extra concrete at the end of the job just in case we had some low areas, and we did. Right there's one of them. So because we have two different stamp patterns going on here, Juan's using a walking edger. It's an 18-inch walking edger, but he's got it's actually a Fresno. He's got converted to an edger, and he's got an adjustable joiner that he can slide back and forth on that Fresno, depending on how wide you want that band. Nice tool just to get your starter of your join in there. These cobblestone mats that we're going to be using for the field, they go pretty deep, and they do have a texture on the surface of every stone. So you got to get on this fairly early in order to really grab that texture within the rubber mat. Here's a funny trowel going on it. We're not going to have to do any hand work like knee boarding or anything like that on this out in the middle, because we're going to get on it pretty early with the stamps. So it doesn't have to be a perfect finished job before you start stamping. The stamp's going to hide everything. The only problem that you'll see once we start stamping, when you get on it this early where your mats come together, you'll get the concrete trying to squish up in between it. So there was a lot of detail work on the joints where the mats met to make it all so you didn't have those squishies in between the mats. And there was Juan just detailing those joints. Here's the cobblestone going on. And we're just going to line it up with that joint. We're also going to texture the outside band simultaneously as we go down through this. And the way I do that is I have enough texture mats, the hand mats, to lay underneath the ends of the cobblestone so they'll overlap the textures. So they'll so we'll get texture, and then you won't get the cobblestone running through the bands. So right now at this point of the job, you can't really see the two-tone effect because it's all covered in the dark gray antique release. This is one of those processes where you have to come back another day to do an acid wash with a pressure wash to kind of remove a lot of that secondary color. And then you have to give it time for that integral concrete to cure out to its real color before you really get the two-tone effect that you're going for here. But you can see I'm doing a lot of the detail work on those joints. I have a roller joiner. Also, after we get completely done stamping, I go back through with, I ended up using a fiberglass hand float. It was about the right width as these joints, and I touched up some more areas. This is the end of the mat where it came together, and you can see how the concrete kind of squished up in between there. So I just tapped it back down, ran the roller through there, and then after we get all stamped out and all the mats are off to pour, I go back through with a wood. I think I had a 14 or 16-inch wood hand float that I was able to press down in between some of those seams to really clean it up. So there's a lot of detail in these jobs when you try to get on them early to get full texture. And when you have all this powder on there, everything you're kind of doing is almost blind. You just have to know what you're doing based on experience, what you've seen it after you've rinsed a few jobs in the past. Then you know what you got to do, you know, in the present. So there it is. We got it all stamped out. Now I'm just kind of doing a little detail along the perimeter.
Yeah.
Also, I have the blower, so I'm blowing some of the powder out of areas that I can't really tell what's going on. Once I blow the powder out of my way, I can see, oh, there's some missed lines here. This is where we set the pattern back. It didn't go over the band when we pressed it. So I go through all that, bring all the joints to the border, make sure that there's texture everywhere. Because if you're not tapping everything in 100%, you'll have areas where there is no secondary color. In other words, it looks like a bald spot. So you gotta get this stuff 100%. All right, this is actually, we waited, this is day 2 after the pour. We waited 2 days and came back to do the pressure wash. We had to give it a little time because it was drying really slow. You can get away with rinsing these the very next day if you'd like, if you're in a really hot, dry climate. This one we had to wait a few days just to make sure that color set in good. So we're rinsing it now. There's not a lot of color change, so there's not a lot of contrast still. So it's really still a guessing game at this point of how much of the powder we want to release. And this is just based on prior jobs that you've done and experience. So as we did the first pressure wash, we noticed we need to take some more powder off, the antique release agent. So we mixed up some muriatic acid and water solution, about 8-to-1 ratio, and then we just sprayed everything. And what that does is it loosens up that top antique release, and then you can blast it off. And you can see how we are starting to get the two-tone somewhat there. So if you can see it just a little bit now, you know that 45 to 90 days, it's going to be even more pronounced at that point. So you just have to kind of get a small glimpse of it right now, in other words. Then it's going to be double that in about 90. So that's what we're going for. You can kind of see that two-tone effect right there. Got good texture on every surface of those cobblestones. And you can see after we hit it with that muriatic acid, some more of the residue coming off. And we didn't do any joints while the concrete was wet here, if you noticed. That's because we're going to saw cut. And the reason we chose to saw cut here is because this cobblestone has straight lines running through it. We want to put our cuts right on those lines. So that's why we did this. We're going to come back, we're going to saw cut it within the lines of the pattern, so they're not going to be that visible. Imagine wet cutting this, and you cut through the middle of one of these cobblestones, you know, and after you stamped it, so you got like split cobbles or something, you got a sore thumb all of a sudden. All right, so this is what it looks like when you're all done. This is similar to what it's going to look like when the wet sealer goes on there. The wet look sealer, lacquer base, wet look. I don't know what kind of sealer he's going to use exactly yet, but the homeowner is going to put a sealer on there. He's going to have to wait for a while though, before it's totally cured out, and it's going to look absolutely stunning. Anyway, thanks for watching this video. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification button. That way you'll be notified on our next upload. Thanks. Have a good one.